Hey everyone, this is Matt Lynch from the OnScript podcast, and we've got some really exciting news to share. In just a week or two, we'll be launching a new podcast called In Verse, as in poetic verse. And it's hosted in its first season by Brent Strawn of Duke Divinity School. This is a new kind of podcast for us, and I'm really excited about its format and style and how it's taken shape and developed. Mary Oliver, in her poem about poetry, says, "That pretty little beast, a poem, has a mind of its own." And it's that mind of its own quality that really thrills me about this podcast and about biblical poetry more broadly. Because poetry has that ability to take us in unexpected directions and that ability to do unexpected things and meet us in surprising ways. In Verse explores the intersections of biblical and contemporary poetry. It's less straightforwardly educational, as in the format of our current podcasts, OnScript and Biblical World, though you'll definitely learn a lot. I'd say it's more experiential. It's designed to bring you into the world of biblical poetry and will help draw out those lines of connection with contemporary poetry and the contemporary world. And Brent is so good at this, and that's why I've asked him to do it. And we've been working hard behind the scenes over the last year to develop this for you. And as we start, I want to give a few shout outs. First of all, Keith Willis produced these episodes beautifully, choosing music and weaving sounds together to produce this first season. So thank you so much, Keith. And also, Alan Files has been really helpful behind the scenes in setting up the website and all the tech that goes on in the background. So thank you, Alan. Also, I want to say that I was inspired to do this podcast after hearing NPR's Poetry Unbound podcast hosted by Padre Gotuma. And I just want to acknowledge that inspiration up front and point you to it. And I want to acknowledge another podcast too that's called the In Verse Podcast, hosted by Jared McKenna and Drew Hart. And I hadn't initially realized that there's a podcast called In Verse. Fortunately, it has a slightly different name. Ours is In Verse, evoking the poetic with a space between in and verse. And that one is In Verse. But since our names are so close, I wanted to just recommend that podcast up front. So we hope you enjoy this first season of In Verse, hosted by Brent Strawn, and I hope that it draws you into the wonder and joy of biblical poetry as it echoes down into the present. So stay tuned and visit us at onscript.study/inverse.